Arg, mateys!
Yeah, okay.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Guys, it's good to be here, it's good to be back, and it's good to start a new series. Have you guys ever seen the movie Pirates of the Caribbean? If you're not familiar with the Pirates of the Caribbean, well, there are a few central characters that you have to understand. In the clip that we just saw, there are two people on an island. The first one is Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack Sparrow is the former captain of the Black Pearl, and he wants to get his ship back very bad. The other is Miss Swann, the daughter of a powerful British governor. Now, it's kind of odd to see these two together because they don't exactly match up. So why are they here on this island all alone? I won't get too far into the details of the plot because it gets complicated, but Jack and Elizabeth, through a series of very unfortunate events, end up on this island together, trapped with no way out. There's not a lot of options on this island, there's not a lot of hope on this island, but Jack has a plan, and it's not a very good one. Jack's plan is to drink the rum, get drunk, and die on the island. Not a very good plan. Elizabeth, on the other hand, wants to be free. See, Jack thought his plan was good enough until he had the option to get off the island. On the island, he was imprisoned, but with the ship, he was free. So he took the freeing option. I love this scene in this movie because it gives us a really good picture on a battle that goes on inside us between sin and God. So what we're facing is a sinful captivity, much like Jack and his plan was, or a freedom that we can only find in God. What's it going to take for us to choose? Let's see what Jesus says about this decision in Luke chapter 9. And he said to all, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." Let's understand for a second what Jesus is asking. This is a big thing. Jesus is asking that we deny ourselves. Now that can sound scary, that can sound troubling, that can sound not very fun, but it's what Jesus asks us to do. And what Jesus means by this is to deny our sinful desires. Jesus uses the metaphor of the cross that he will carry eventually as something that we should carry ourselves. Now, he might not literally mean carrying your cross, but what he does mean is that when we do things for him, it should be bold, and it's gonna hurt, and it's gonna push against the grain of society. The world will fight back for what you're doing. That's why the world rejects the gospel. This is what Jesus means when he says, pick up your cross and carry it. Now, we have a tough decision to make. On one hand, Jesus wants us to pick up our cross daily and follow him. And on the other, the world calls us to follow our desires. The thing is that one leads to spiritual freedom and one leads to a spiritual death. Let's go back to our video for just a second. Jack wants to stay on the island and give up and give into his situation. His plan is to sit there and die. We can imagine this as the side that just wants to give into our desires, aka the easy way. On the other hand, Elizabeth wants to be free, and we can imagine this as the desire in us that wants God. Elizabeth knew that in order to be free, she had to turn from the same temptation that Jack had, which was not necessarily to drink the rum, but to give up and let sin win. This can look different in everyone's lives. That could be any sin that's holding you back. What we need to do is identify that sin. What is holding me back? What is holding me from having a true, genuine relationship with God or chasing after him? Once you identify that, burn it, just like Elizabeth did. Turn away and run the other direction. It's the only path to true freedom. Now, before we continue on, this is a very tough thing to do. It's tough to leave old friends behind or maybe break up with somebody who's not a godly person. It's tough to do these things. But we have to remember that everyone struggles with this. We can think of it like this. It's not a sprint, but a marathon. When you feel like giving up or you're tired, just get back up and keep going. Y'all remember Paul, right? Paul was one of the greatest missionaries of all time. We covered him in a previous video. But even someone who was named the greatest missionary of all time still had trouble following God. Let's read in Philippians and see what Paul has to say about this. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. What Paul is saying that he has trouble holding on to is his relationship with God. He has trouble just like we do. And honestly, that's an encouragement because Paul was very close to God and he pursued him with everything, yet he still slipped and stumbled. I know I slip and stumble, and I feel like I am behind when I do that. But when I see that Paul, one of the greatest, most popular biblical characters that we know of, had trouble, it makes me think that everyone has trouble. And it's true, everyone does have trouble. But one thing Paul says he does that helps him is he doesn't look back. He always looks forward. A good way to think about this is wherever you're looking is where you're moving towards. So if you're looking in the past, like Jack was, that's where you're going to move towards. Or if you're going to look towards the future, like Elizabeth was, that's where you're going to go. And that's exactly what Paul does. He forgets about his past, and he had a bad one, worse than a lot of us. And he focused on the future, on Christ. And he looked for that goal of being closer to Christ and closer to Jesus. He didn't look back, but he looked forward. So here are some takeaways. The first one is do not let sin win. And in order to not let sin win, we have to do something bold, something drastic, something to cut all ties with the sin that was holding us back. In 1 Kings, there's a cool story in the Bible that illustrates this really well. Elisha is called to become a new prophet. Elisha literally burns his old farming equipment in order to live the new life as a prophet. He takes this bold strategy to beat his old life and to focus fully on his new life. And for number 2, remember to always press on. If Paul had trouble, that means it's okay that we have trouble. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Even if you get tired or get beat down, as long as you're pressing on and focusing on what's in front of you, you can move towards that direction and towards Christ. And lastly, we have to consider the two sides. One is spiritual death, and the other is spiritual freedom. Guys, sin, all it wants to do is keep you where you are. It wants to keep you in shame and in sadness and in pain in your past. But God has created us and given us an opportunity through Jesus to live a new life, to be created, to be clothed in Him. And with that, Jesus offers you and me and everybody else a spiritual freedom, a way off the island. So what will you choose? Will you choose to stay on the island or signal to the ship to be free? It's up to you guys. And with that, I'll see you guys next week. Cool.
Your coffee is now.
Oh, bro. Dang it.